Welcome to RESGEN's Giving Life podcast. Stories and conversations about life in Christ, everyday discipleship, and exploring ways that we as men can give life to others. My name is Tom Henderson, the founder of RESGEN, and I appreciate you joining me for another edition of the podcast. My guest today is a friend who has been a lifelong educator at the local, state, and national level, and who is also what I would call a leadership guru. Rick Melmer has been a teacher, a superintendent of schools in 3 states, the Dean of Education for the University of South Dakota, and the Secretary of Education for the State of South Dakota. He's a certified growth coach, the director of RVM Consulting, and also the founder of Leadership South Dakota, a highly respected program that trains individuals for leadership positions at the community, state, and national levels. On today's episode, Rick and I discuss so many great things, including the guiding principles that helped shape his leadership philosophy throughout his 34-year education career, how to map out a course of action so that we can accomplish our goals, and we also talk about what he believes some of the biggest challenges Christian leaders are facing today and how we can overcome them. You've tuned in for a good one today, friends. Here's my conversation with Rick Melmer. Rick Melmer, it is good to have you as a guest on RESGEN's Giving Life podcast.
Thanks. Good to be here, Tom.
Yeah, I was so appreciative of you accepting my invitation because even when I was planning the initial guest list, when I was making out my list of people that I wanted to have join me on this podcast, you've been on that list from the very first one. Wow. So I want you to know that you've been on there, and I've done several episodes to train myself in preparation for you.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm honored. I've heard some of the other folks that you've had on the list. I don't belong on the same list as a lot of those people, but I'm happy that I'm here, and I look forward to the conversation. So.
Yeah, it's great. Well, let's introduce the listeners and viewers to you. Okay, so let's give just a snapshot as to who Rick Melmer is. Let's start with your family, okay? And then just some things that you've done in your career. We're going to talk about some of those things in your career, things you've learned, specifically in the leadership realm. And I think we're just gonna have a great time together. So let's just start by just your family, and then just some things that you've been keeping you busy over the last 40 years.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah. So my wife Valerie and I have been married. It'll be 38 years in August. We're grateful for every one of those years, and she just turned 60 last week, and we vacationed for about 5 days and just had a great time, and thankful that we can be married for 37 plus years and still really like each other and be together for 5 or 6 days and enjoy it. We have 3 kids, 3 children, all adults now, all married with awesome mates, and we have 8 grandchildren. So the years go by quickly. It wasn't that long. We were in the world you're living in, which is, it's like semi-adult children, trying to get them out of the house successfully. And here we are now, years later, with our youngest being 32. Our oldest will be 40 in November, and 8 awesome grandkids. Life's been wonderful. I'm a lifelong educator. Was a teacher and a principal and a superintendent. Was fortunate enough to work in the Department of Ed as a cabinet secretary under Governor Rounds for 5 years. It was a great experience to do that. And then I served as a dean of the School of Education at USD for 5 years. So I had some higher ed experience, which I learned a lot from. And then my wife and I started the Leadership South Dakota program 7 years ago. So we just finished our 7th class. We'll begin our 8th class this fall. And along with that, I do some leadership coaching and work with organizations on leadership development. And I just feel really blessed, Tom, to be where I'm at right now at this stage of life. So it's great to be here.
Yeah, and every conversation we have, it just does not seem that you're slowing down. I mean, even I was so excited when I saw that you had gotten away, because you had posted a picture of you and Valerie on bikes in Florida, wearing helmets. So way to be safe down there. But and I was just so excited because you went away.
Right.
Because it's people like us, we just go, and we're very purpose driven. We want to have impact. And I've always appreciated that about you. And I want to talk about some of those things that you've experienced in your career, because you have quite the pedigree as far as just, especially in the education system, 34 years in education at all different levels.
Right.
So seeing education from so many different viewpoints, And so as you think about your career in education and then also your focus on leadership, we're going to get into the Leadership South Dakota stuff towards the end of our time together. But I'm interested in what are some of those principles of leadership that you carried with you in each of those educational platforms that you had and jobs that you had?
Yeah. So I've worked for the most part in the nonprofit sector. So in those leadership roles, I think you really have to bring people along with you through your influence, because it isn't so much a top-down approach. Some of the private sector companies are, if the boss says you're doing it, everybody goes, okay, this is what we're doing. In the nonprofit world, there's a lot of points of no. There's a lot of levels of involvement. For example, a school district, I used to say there were like 5 groups that could submarine anything we were doing. The school board, who I answered to, the teacher group could, the parents could, the community could, and then ultimately the students could. I mean, any kind of organized high school student effort could derail sometimes an initiative that we wanted to see happen. So you really had to lead by gaining and generating influence among the key groups that you were working with. And I think that's a harder task than it is to just say, this is what we're doing and this is when we're going to start. And so I really think, for me, the leadership principles that made the most difference for me were just sort of being humble and recognizing that this is what I know, this is what I don't know, and this is how I think we should proceed. And then also what humble people do is listen to a lot of input and gain input and allow people part of the process. And if they're a part of it, they're more interested and likely to follow it when you start. I also think, and I'm borrowing some of this from Patrick Lencioni, who I really enjoy reading some of his stuff, hungry, that idea of, being ambitious, having a plan, having a goal, having drive. You said earlier about not taking a lot of vacations and spending a lot of time thinking about work. That's both a blessing and a curse for me.
Totally.
I mean, the blessing has been, I feel like I wake up in the morning kind of ready to go, and I go to bed at night thinking about the next day. The downside is I oftentimes haven't been always as present as I should be with my wife and with my family. And I wish I had some of those years back that maybe I could, sort of get a redo there. I don't have that luxury, but I can help other people like you and others sort of think about that as they're working their way through. And then the last one is just really a genuine care for people, and the idea of like leading people based on what they need from me, not what I think they need, and learning about them enough to be able to say, here's what Tom needs, here's what Thad needs, this is how I need to lead them best. Those are some of the leadership principles that I think have stayed with me over the years. It's not about you, it's about them. And if you can sort of lead with that mindset, you're going to be better off.
Yeah. The podcast is called, the Giving Life Podcast. And as I think about leaders in my life that have been life-giving, they really had principles much like you're sharing there, because no one wants to work in an environment, be in an environment for too long if it's just nonstop, top down, just told what to do it well, move on. But how are they being heard?
Yeah.
Are they being cared for?
Do I matter? Is the work I'm doing here for the organization making any difference at all? And if so, what is it? Is anybody telling me that? The old saying, people don't leave their jobs, they leave their boss. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. The idea that am I valued by the person that I answer to? And if the answer is yes, I might likely stay longer than if I just feel like I'm just here grinding it out and nobody really cares or knows.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that's a great way to start. And so I think about in all the different realms of education that you had and that you worked in, teachers are some of the hardest working individuals, I think, on the planet, and they're not only teachers, but in many ways they're serving as parents. They're serving as caretakers. They're serving as like accountability for kids, all those kinds of things. And I think about, just they're working their normal hours. They're then preparing for the next day. They're grading papers. They're doing all these things. And so as a principal, What were some of the things that you strived? I mean, I know that you probably brought all that stuff that you just talked about. Were there specific things that you tried to do specifically for teachers that would encourage them and give them the life they need?
Yeah, I mean, and one of the things that I think anybody should do, whether you're their principal, their boss, or not, is encourage them. Encourage them. Teachers clearly know that they're going into the profession and they're not going to make a lot of money. They know that. That's not a surprise that they knew that going in, and they don't. Our oldest daughter, Tara, is a teacher, and we're proud of her for the work that she's done at Baltic for a lot of years. But I have discovered and watched both firsthand and also after I've left the profession that good, genuine appreciation and encouragement goes a long way with teachers. And so as a supervisor, I tried to give them my time. That's the one thing I could give them that I had that was available to them, and make sure that I was available to teachers to say, how can I help? What are you doing? And then if they were having a tough time, tough kids in their classrooms or whatever, to just make sure that I got out of my chair, got out of my office, went down to their classroom and said, you all right? You doing okay? And I think a lot of that is like fundamentally 101 stuff that people go, oh, well, that's not that big a deal. Yeah, it is. To them, it matters to be present, to invest in their time and energy, to know when they're struggling, and to be able to say, how can I help you get through this? And I've just discovered that when I worked with teachers, that was what spoke the loudest to them, is just honest and sincere appreciation for the work that they do. And I just don't think they get enough of that. And you're right, what you said earlier, Tom, about it used to be, kind of the academics was the primary focus, and it still is. But I used to say to some of the teachers, the kids' problems don't stop at the schoolhouse door. They follow them right in the door into the classroom, and you get to deal with all of it. And so if they're angry or sad or mad, that's coming into the classroom with them. And they can't learn until you've at least tried to manage that to the best of your ability. So we're really asking teachers to do a lot more today than they did 20 years ago. And unfortunately, I don't think that's going to change. I think it's going to become increasingly more challenging as years go by.
Well, and I think you mentioned the kids bringing whatever has gone on in their home or hasn't gone on in their home that they've needed into the classroom. Each of the teachers are also bringing what's gone on in their homes.
Right.
And then, because we all live lives outside of our work. And so we bring that to the office, we bring that to the classroom. And so by you, making it a focus and placing a primacy on going and being with them, encouraging, that's a way of just of saying, hey, this is where you can be real as well. And that's what Jesus did, right?
Yeah.
Jesus was present. He was present, and he was with the people. And I know that your faith is of utmost importance to you. And we're going to talk a little bit about men's ministry here today as well. But your faith in Christ, your foundation of your marriage is Jesus. The foundation of your parenting is Jesus. So talk about just when did faith become a driving force in your life, Rick?
Yeah, thanks for that. Good question, and it hasn't always been. I grew up in a really loving family. Church was every Sunday, didn't miss. And so I'm grateful for that discipline, that spiritual discipline I learned as a young man. But it was very much a Sunday morning experience, and then the rest of the week was, you were on your own. There was no scripture involved. There wasn't a lot of Bible, any kind of Bible reading to speak of at all. And so when I got out, it really give the Lord a lot of credit. I feel like he was just working on me in his own way. Went through college, wasn't leading a Christian life at that point, but I just knew all along that I needed that in my life. It was something that I felt like the Holy Spirit was working on me, the Lord was working on me. And I found this young woman who I just fell in love with and married to her today. But she really came from a family of faith. Valerie just came from a family that was a faithful family. And I guess maybe the Lord just knew I needed that in my life. And it was a huge, if you were to ask me, like, what were some of the key events in my life that have shaped who I am today, getting married to Valerie would be certainly probably the biggest one. Because she gave me the permission to kind of lead the kind of life that I really felt like maybe I wanted to lead but couldn't or didn't know how. And she helped me build the context for that. So really at the age of my mid-20s is when my faith walk began. And so I had a lot of catching up to do. I had a lot of work to do that, a lot of people have that running start, and I just didn't have that. You can relate to some of that probably. And so I I feel like it's become a huge part of my life today, but it's been like a snowball rolling down a hill, like every year a little stronger, a little more evidence that Christ has a plan for me. And it's just made all the difference, Tom, in my world in terms of my marriage, how we raised our children, how I approach my work. Like this is what I'm doing to honor God. How I perform in the workplace is honoring God, in my own way. So it's just been an awesome walk for me, and I feel like as I get closer to the finish line, that there's even more urgency for me to try to live every day the way God would want me to, and to try to bring as many people as I can along with me on that journey.
Yeah. Well, I hope that finish line's a far way off, my friend.
So do I.
Yeah.
But you and I both know you never know when that is.
Yeah,
so.
you really don't.
No.
We're not guaranteed tomorrow.
No.
And it's so crucial that we live each day as if it were our last, because every day we wake up, when we take a breath, that is yet another gift.
Right.
Every breath we breathe throughout the day, that is a gift. Right. That is a gift from God.
Absolutely. My brother-in-law, Bill, who's married to my sister, Lisa, he got identified, it'll be a year this fall, with a stage 4 brain tumor, and they're doing well. He's doing well. But they wake up every day with that kind of mindset, Tom, of like, how many more days are we going to get? Is it going to be 6 months? Is it going to be a year? Is it going to be 5 years? And I just admire them so much, and I'm encouraging them and cheering them on to kind of say, you're doing what all of us should be doing. Wake up every day thanking God for another day and saying, what can I do today that's going to really matter? And, focus on the things that are really important.
When you receive a report, and often it comes like through a doctor's report, or you hear about an untimely death or whatever, it's especially during those moments that you realize how very little control we have of really anything.
Yeah.
And I think that this last year just the challenges of COVID and all this, that we realize that there's so much that we don't have, control of. And so I'm interested. So have you had an experience, Rick, where it's just been like a realization for you to where it's, wow, this is a sign that I really don't have much control in this, and I need to just 100% lean into Jesus on this deal.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in 2015, September of 2015, I had done some work over the last 2 years prior to that, 2013 and 14, with Mid-Central Co-op out of Platte, South Dakota, which is near where I grew up. And that fall, I had quit working with Mid-Central, was drawing my retirement and starting Leadership South Dakota at that time. And their CFO, murdered his family, started his house on fire, and committed suicide. And when the news media started to circle around and try to figure out who might have been, connected to any of this, my name came up in a pretty prominent way for a while. And, this was after I had been an educator for well over 30 years, and I thought I had built this rock solid reputation of, a man of character and, doing good work and all that sort of thing. And within a matter of a few hours, it all just sort of tumbled, and people started to question and wonder, at least I thought they were, what's this all about? And what's this Melmer guy all about? Maybe he isn't who we thought he was. And man, it just rocked me, Tom. I just, to my core, thought, all this time I spent trying to build this reputation, when all the while it just was so fragile. Whereas my relationship with God is not that way at all. It's always there. He knows me well. He knows my heart. And so it really did. It just sort of accelerated my faith. And God does his best work in our most challenging times. All you have to do is talk to people about how they came to the Lord. And it's rarely because of this huge success that they had. It's normally because I came front and center with an encounter I didn't know what to do with, and then God showed up. And he did with me big time, and just helped me understand how important a faith in him is, and how fragile all the other relationships really are.
So how did you personally deal with that, Rick, where, people were maybe saying some things about you because of a headline, but they for sure did not know the full story. And I think we've all had experiences in our life where, people have questioned our character, or they questioned our motivation. But when your name is dragged through the mud, and you feel that there's lies or mistruths or whatever being spread, that like you said, it rocks you, and it hurts. I mean, it hurts. And a lot of times as dudes, we don't want to say like, man, I feel hurt right now.
Right. Right.
But so how did you process that and deal specifically with people that maybe were not knowing the full story, but, saying some things that definitely weren't?
Yeah, well, you find out who the people are that are really for you. I mean, you find that out pretty quickly. Also, my wife was a huge help to me. She had gone through, as a young woman, she was a single mother, had a child before she and I got married. And she said the scrutiny that I was under and the shame that I felt and all that sort of thing, she just had to do business with all that. And by the way, it was much worse than anything I could have gone through. And she was a wonderful resource for me here, right there in my own roof, right next to me, just going, Rick, I sort of understand what you're dealing with, and really helped me through it to a great extent. Godly friends, but also just that idea of, I had nowhere else to turn. So I turned to the Word. I read more. I studied more. I sort of tried to apply what I could learn, studied people like Joseph in the Bible. Talk about a man who was sort of wronged in every sense of the word multiple times. And then you start to realize that, hey, this is how character is built. Yeah. And this is how I get stronger, is through adversity. And now I can help other people that have gone through something similar to that and be able to help them. So while I don't know that there were lies told about me, there just was not the whole truth. Just like part of the story was being told, not the other part of the story. And I wanted to tell the other part of the story, and I had no platform to do it. So then you finally just decide, I'm going to grind it out and just, Lord, what are you trying to teach me? Craig Groeschel had a book written a while back, and I wish I could remember which one it was. It might have been Divine Direction. One of my favorites was, when difficult times come, don't ask the question, why me, why now, why this? Ask the question, what, Lord, do you want me to know? What do you want me to learn? What do you want me to do as a result of these circumstances? So it's what, not why. Yeah. And I really adopted that philosophy, like, Lord, what are you teaching me? Yeah. What do you want me to learn? What should I be doing? And really, that's how a lot of these other ministry opportunities that I've started have come up, is because of that. Yeah. Like I need to do something that can help me help other people in their walk.
I like that. Not why, but what. What? There's one of my favorite stories to preach on is the story of Abraham and Isaac, and there's something that I feel like the Lord gave me during that message where there was several times where Abraham probably wanted to say, why, God? Yeah. Why? But even though he didn't understand the why, he did understand the who, right? And he knew that who would be faithful as long as he continued to be faithful to God. And I think about what you're saying there is just, it's why is a perfectly great question to ask.
Yeah, it's a natural question.
And the reality is that God can handle our whys. Yeah, right. I mean, we serve a big God. Right. And I mean, you think about Job, and the question why is asked over 300 times in the book of Job.
I
by
didn't
the way,
know that. Yeah, but that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. You can do a word count, but different translations probably have different numbers. But so God can handle our whys. Yeah. But our whys are supposed to drive us towards God. Right. Not away from God. Right. And that's where our responsibility lies, right? Is just that our why is going to draw us, pull us towards God or away from him. Right. And, in your situation, it turned you, not that you were away from God at all, but I mean, it turned you even like leaning deeper in and saying, okay, God, what are you going to teach me through this? And I love what you said, at the end of the day, and this is what I talk about with my kids. I know that you've done this as well. With yours and now your grandkids, is at the end of the day, it's character that wins out. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think about some specific situations in my life and in my ministry where some mistruths, some not full truths were being shared. And I just had to rest in the fact that it's the Lord that's our defender. Right. And as long as we are following close. And so I think about listeners that are maybe listening right now that they're asking that question, why? Mm-hmm. And rightfully so. Yeah. But the times of saying, okay, God, this is the season that I'm in, but I'm going to lean into you. I'm going to trust the who, and I'm going to find out the what. Yeah, yeah. So,
and also to assume that we're going to go through our lives and not have any kind of setbacks. I mean, that would be your first mistake, right? Yeah. Is like, hey, what's it going to be? Yeah. I mean, for me, it was that, and I don't think I'm done yet. I mean, if I live long enough, I'm going to see other things happen that I'm not going to be excited about. But all the while, the one constant is the Lord loves me. Lord cares about me. The Lord's going to provide for me. And that has to be the truth I continue to rely on.
Mm-hmm. And what I also love, Rick, that you're talking about is that God now can use that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
well, in my wife's case, her setback, which by the way, she's been asked to speak to a number of groups of young women, like, the circumstances, and she's used that as a ministry opportunity. But then she turned around and ministered to me at a time, and they were two separate, unrelated issues, but they brought us together in that way. That was it really mattered to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was awesome.
Yeah, that's good. So Christian leadership, there is, being a leader, a Christ-following leader. We live in a day and age where that can be difficult. And there's scrutiny, opposition, whatever that Christian leaders especially will fall under. All leadership is hard, but being faithful in our walk with Jesus and leading as a Christ-following leader is sometimes not all black and white. It's sometimes difficult, and it is challenging. What would you say are maybe some of the most difficult things that Christian leaders today are facing, and how and beyond that, and then how do they lead through those things?
So one of the things that's emerged in the last handful of years that I never had to deal with was the whole social media world. I didn't have to, as a school superintendent, as Secretary of Ed, that wasn't around during that time, I didn't have to worry about how many likes I had, how many people responded to a tweet that I sent out. And I would have been one of those that would have probably tried to keep score there. Like, how's this one playing? Or, I'm going to say this, and I hope that comes out okay, because I would always be a little bit too worried about what everybody thought instead of just kind of doing the right thing. So I feel like the Christian leaders today have to struggle with this idea of, like, am I popular? How am I being viewed? Am I doing enough to sort of get my views out there? And I feel sad that is, it's an external metric that you're probably never going to win, because no matter how many followers you have, there's somebody that has more. It's kind of the Andy Stanley talks about the like smarter, cuter, more popular, whatever it is. And and that's the challenge I think a Christian leader would face today. I didn't have to deal with a lot of that. And I don't worry about it today, but I think many of them do, and I feel sad for them that's sort of a metric that they have to pay attention to. And I think the answer is inside out. It's the idea of, like, take care of your own relationships first. Relationship with God first. Are you spending time in the Word? Are you spending time in daily devotion and prayer? Start there. And then second of all, what about your most intimate relationships? Your spouse, your children. Are you doing your work there? If all of those boxes can be checked, now you can start thinking about your congregation, your, all those other things. But I think we always have it, or the challenge is always, sort of avoiding the opposite of that. Like, I'm going to pay attention to the external world. And then at night, I'll come home and try to do what I can do to manage the things around here. And God would just say, you have it backwards. Start on the inside and work your way out. Don't start on the outside and hope that the inside is going to take care of itself, because it won't.
Yeah, that's, I think about the very first men's summit that we did. And so we just completed year 5. I know that you've been to several of them and brought your son and son-in-laws. But I think about the very first one where Matt Hammett, the lead singer of Sanctus Real, he was on an earlier podcast here, and he and I became good friends on a tour back before I was even doing men's summits, and his line was, who you are at home makes all the difference in the world.
Right.
And that's exactly what you're talking about there. And that's what I think that is one of the most difficult parts of being a Christian leader as a man, whether that be in the church or in the business at whatever, or in the education field, or sometimes is that it can become, so much about out here.
Yeah.
Because that is important. I mean,
Sure
we are hired to do a job, and we want to be successful. We want to be as impactful as we can, as whatever the situation is out there. But then how do we also make sure that we're not just crushing it out there or hitting home runs out there, but that we're doing that at home as well?
Right.
And balancing that and trying to figure that out.
Right. Right. And more than just with our spouses. I mean, I really am back to like daily reading of the word, daily devotions and prayer time. And my wife and I have been we've been married, as I said, nearly 38 years. And we've been doing devotions, probably 25 of those 38. We didn't start that way, but we've been doing them for more than 25 years, where every morning, we sometimes don't do it on weekends, but certainly Monday through Friday when we're together, it's a devotion time and a prayer time for our family, for people in our lives that we care about that are going through difficult circumstances. And then we always have a section for ministry, and Tom and Laura Henderson's name is right there because we just know the challenges that people in ministry face. And so we have a special section of our prayer time that we just devote to people in ministry by name. We think it's important to say their names out loud and talk about the people that are doing God's work. And because we know that Satan is after you. I mean, he is after you. In fact, if he's not, you're not doing very much. He's leaving you alone because he goes, I got this guy. I'm going to focus on the ones I gotta work on. And so if he's after you, it's because you're doing good work. And our job, we think, is to pray for people like that, along with just people that we really genuinely care about and love. So, taking care of the daily discipline of your walk with the Lord will springboard you into all kinds of opportunities outside of that. But too often we allow the shiny objects to take precedent over the mundane sort of grinding out relationship with the Lord that isn't very attractive or sexy or noticeable. Yeah. But it produces results. Kind of that private victories precede public success. Yeah. If you can master your private life, your public life is going to be fine. And I've learned that over the years. It wasn't like I've always had that under control, but I'm certainly much better about it today than I was 30 years ago.
Yeah, think about the difference. When you speaking right there just made me think about, the things Jesus says in John 15:5 about just being, connected to the vine. It's so much to where, like, we honestly can say that without that connection, we can do nothing.
Yeah.
And like, do we really believe that? Mm-hmm. When we get up in the morning, when we head out for the workday, do we recognize that apart from Christ, we can do nothing? I mean, that's some crazy words that Jesus is talking about there. Right. And if we take that to heart, right. There's a lot of times, Rick, just being real honest with you, that I head out into the day and boy, you know what? I'm not sure I go in with the mindset of apart from Christ, I can do nothing.
No, absolutely. We all have to be reminded.
We get by on our talents. Yeah. Oh, yeah, by the way, those came from God. Mm-hmm. Our gifts, our personalities, whatever it is. Oh, right. Well, God's the giver of all those gifts.
Yes, he is. Absolutely, right. But it's easy, all the stuff that I talked about, daily devotion, raising children, having a happy marriage or working towards that, and you're not going to get any accolades for any of those things. Nobody's going to clap. Nobody's going to say, write you a note and go, hey, nice job on 38 years. No, it's just not going to happen. That's God's work, and that's the important work that God wants us to do. But we're not going to get public kudos for that. And that's what is so difficult, is all the other stuff that we do, you get that feedback that sort of allows you to kind of go, hey, this is awesome. This is wonderful. And then, of course, you slowly drift away from the things that are probably really the most important.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when you and I had coffee one time. I don't know if you remember this conversation, but we were just talking about marriage, yeah. I think is what we were talking about. And just, and I remember you telling me at that time that you and Valerie that you did devotions and prayed every morning. And then, but you didn't stop there. You said, and sometimes that's even more difficult, especially if we're arguing and we're not really getting along. And yeah. and I make this joke on the podcast and on the stage a lot, where I say, like, we don't call it arguing in our house, we call it intense fellowship. And so, like, you're I love it. You're having some intense fellowship, yes. But yet even during those times. And I was fascinated when you said this, Rick, and I didn't necessarily intend to bring this up today, but I just felt like it was perfect. But you talked and you said, but even during those times, yeah. we still were disciplined enough to say, no, we're going to read the word and we're going to pray together. And then you said, do you know how hard it is to be mad at someone when you're praying with them?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there have been times when both of us have, during our prayers, said, Lord, forgive me for how I'm treating my wife right now, how I'm treating Valerie, or she might do that with me. I mean, and it just breaks everything down. Mm. And when we're done praying, it's like we look at each other like, I love you. Mm. I love you too. There's just something about that. But again, you got to get there. You got to get there, and it's not an easy place to get. But there are times where we literally are praying for forgiveness for how we're treating the other person when they're right there.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's when you know you've done it long enough where I guess it's part of your life. But
man, that's
it's been a blessing for sure.
That's some conviction falling on a lot of people right now, including myself, because
and we don't have it figured out either, Tom, but it's been a blessing to be able to just know that we're going to do this and the good things are going to come from it.
Yeah. Well, since we're on the topic of marriage, and then we'll get back into the leadership stuff, but so 38 years, which I'll applaud for that. Okay.
Yeah.
I know you said you weren't going to
Thanks.
you're not going to get a trophy from me, but I'll say congratulations and keep up the good work.
Okay.
But so along the way of 38 years of marriage, you've picked up, I'm sure, countless nuggets of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I know that you and Valerie have done kind of some marriage conversations and marriage events and the like together. So what are some of those wisdom nuggets that I think that, number one, I need them right now,
Yeah.
Rick? I'm asking you this totally for selfish reasons, but I think someone else is going to, glean some stuff from this too. So give some wisdom nuggets that you've learned over 38 years of marriage.
Yeah. Well, I'll just pick on one, and it could be a topic unto itself for a long conversation. That is, appreciate the differences. And instead of allowing them to divide you, which has happened in our marriage. I mean, I've gotten angry with Valerie about things that I know that's who she is. I know that's how she operates. It still irritates me, and she knows me very well, better than anybody on the planet. And there are certain things I do with her that just irritate her. And she knows it, and she knows I'm going to do it, and I do it anyway. But we really have gotten to the point, I think, as the years have gone by, where we start to really appreciate that. Like, I need that in my life. She has things that I don't have, and I need it. And I'm better when I have it in my life. And when I celebrate it versus getting mad about it, then it gives her permission to be not only who she is, but also it gives her permission to give me grace when I'm doing things that are aggravating to her. If I say, I that's bothers me, but I mean, like she leaves her keys, or places, or forgets her phone, and ring my phone, call my phone. I can't find my phone. I am like super focused, and I work too hard, and she knows I'm going to do that. And even when I shouldn't, she knows I will. And we argue or might debate about that. And I think we both kind of learned that about each other, and just realized that, we've got to give each other some grace. You're different than me, but your differences make me and us better. Mm-hmm. The other thing I will say, of course, we're now no children in the home, and it's easier. It's just easier. We don't have as many conflicts to manage,
Sure.
right? I mean, so once all that's gone, it kind of makes it easier to love each other because we don't have all the interference that's going on that children, by the way, that we love, right?
Yeah.
We all love, but they provide that interference to the frequency that's between, she and I, and all of a sudden we have these things that are interrupting it and make it more difficult. So, the idea, hang in there, like hang in there, love your wife, or love your husband, keep doing the heavy lifting now, because when those kids leave, it's going to be a new day. You're going to have an opportunity to celebrate, Lord willing. And of course, you always hope that God gives you enough years to really enjoy that. But we're celebrating the fruits of our labor now. We're watching our children raise children, and that's gratifying and wonderful to watch. And then Valerie and I get to do things that we want to do and we like to do. One other little tidbit would be find things you like to do together.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We like to exercise. We enjoy walking. We enjoy biking. We both like it. We both enjoy it. And so we really do try to make it a point to do that as often as we can. And it just gives us that sort of bond that really, I think, strengthens our marriage.
I think that's a really good word, Rick, because, I mean, while it's great when spouses have different interests and different hobbies and all of that, but if that's all you have, and then you don't find time to do things together outside of dinner or, the weekly date night or whatever, then it's easier to become distant and become drift away. That doesn't mean that you always have to be together. That doesn't mean that you you can't have a hobby that your spouse doesn't or whatever. But to find things and pockets of times of doing things that you enjoy together, because and even especially when you do have young kids. Mm-hmm. And when you have kids that are in middle school and high school, and those real challenging, I mean, in every stage of childhood,
but
brings
middle school,
challenges.
High school, or
that's a haul. That's a
full
haul.
contact sport, right?
No kidding. But to find those things that you enjoy doing together and laughter. I remember previous podcast with Mike Goodwin where he talked about there's two types of rooms, a room that has laughter and a room that needs laughter.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's such a powerful statement, because you think about what laughter does for our soul, laughter does for our home.
Yeah.
But if we don't, and laughter does for our relationships.
Right.
And I think about all the times that I've come home and just been all about productivity. I've been upset about something or whatever.
Yep.
And I didn't do a good job of recognizing that there was no laughter and maybe how could I infuse some of that or joy at that, at the very least. But then thinking about just in our marriages.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And how do we have laughter in our marriage? Right. I heard a statement from a great mentor friend of mine. I think Reed DeVries, he said that the second highest rate of divorce is about year 20, 22, and it's after the kids move out.
Yeah.
Because parents have been so focused on the children.
Right.
And again, they're wonderful. They're gifts. Every child's a gift from God, and even during the tough seasons.
Right.
But we're going to practices. We're doing all these things, and spouses never come together. Yeah. And so I love that piece of finding things to do together. Yeah,
it's great, and it's been wonderful for us. And now, our children are old enough now where they're saying out loud, "We're thankful for you guys because you've been a good model for us." And you just start to realize the power in that you don't even think about when they're small. You're just trying to get to the next day or the next year or through high school or whatever, and then all of a sudden you start to realize this has generational impact.
Right.
I mean, if we do it well here. Our children are going to raise children and hopefully stay married happily. Their children will have that model, and that's that whole biblical, generational impact of godly, marriages, and it's just so true. Yeah. So I every time we talk about our, marriage, we love that, but I always worried that Satan's going to be at work too in our lives, and it's going to try to. So we really got to lock arms and recognize that it's going to be a tough go, and but we're doing well so far, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, well, and I know you've been a great coach for many couples, you and Valerie both, and so thanks for your investment in couples. And I know that as not just coaching a marriage, but you love coaching people just in general and just in life, and so you've helped. I know a lot of people as you've developed coaching models throughout the year and your investment in people in helping them to kind of, move from just intending to do things to acting upon them to accomplishing goals and accomplishing tasks in their life. So tell me about some of your coaching and some things that maybe can help our listeners just accomplish some things in their life that they want to accomplish. And what are you working with leaders on right now of helping them, move from intention to action and do the things that they want to do?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that. So one of the things that I have become a believer in, and I'm not trying to sell the disc, but I think having a strong idea of who I am as a leader or who I am as a person is really important. And so I happen to use the DISC, but there's other tools out there that are probably equally effective. And I just had a really good session this morning with a leader that I'm doing some coaching with, and we spent the whole time talking about his DISC profile and the impact of his preferred style on the group that he's leading, and the impact both good and also not so good. Like we like to say strengths overplayed are a weakness. So if you have this strength and you're proud of it and you use it all the time, pretty soon it no longer is effective because you've overplayed it, and you have to have that balance. So I think first of all, know yourself and what impact your style and your preferred style has on those around you. And if you know the other people around you that report to you, do their styles and yours match? And if not, how can you be a better version of yourself to them, not, expect them to sort of conform to who you are. So a lot of that is work that I do where I'm just talking with them about direct reports and what style do you think they have and how does that match up with yours? And then I do try to take them through kind of a cycle when I do kind of a traditional coaching visit, which is, first one is like, what's going on with you right now? What are you thinking about? What are you working on? And just kind of encourage them to take inventory. Like, let's stop everything. What's going on right now? And normally the AWE and what else is the most powerful part of it. So they share, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. What else are you doing? What else are you thinking about? And then you really get to the meat of what's really happening. I mean, then they really start, I'm also dealing with this. And some of the best responses and the most meaningful responses are in the second or third, and what else are you thinking about? And what else are you working on? That's at least been my experience, is that people will give you the standard response. It's like the coffee shop response. How you doing? I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm doing,
Yeah.
What else are you doing? What else are you thinking about? And of course, it's private, one-on-one settings.
Mm-hmm.
Second question I like to ask is like, so why do you think that's happening? So, I'm stressed out, I'm overworked, I got 100 things going on. So why is that happening? What's going on that's causing that to happen? What's the root cause? Let's talk about why you think that might be happening. And it's really been helpful for people to go, well, and they start to unpack it. This is why I think it's going on. And, really, and oftentimes it's I overcommit, I'm saying yes too much. Most of the time it's like, look in the mirror. I'm doing all of it. I really can't blame anybody else. It's kind of like I'm taking on too much. I'm not saying no. I'm borrowing other people's problems. And then the third question is like, so who do you think can help you? Who do you think's around that might be able to add some value? And also, who needs more of your time? Who do you think is around you that you could invest in that might help you become a better version of yourself and help your organization? And then the last one is just kind of, what's your plan going forward?
Mm-hmm.
What are a couple of things I've heard you talk about, these 3 or 4 things. Let's talk about each one of them. What's one thing you can do between now and the next time we meet in 2 or 3 weeks that might move the needle in the right direction for you in this area? And I try to be their accountability partner. And then I'll say to them, I'm going to ask you about this in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
When we meet again, I'm writing it down. I'm going to ask you. And then they go, okay. And then a lot of times, they see me on the calendar. I'm meeting with Rick in a couple of days. I got to
better cram.
What did I say I was going to do? But I think it helps them kind of go, I'm going to have somebody ask me about this. And the feedback I get from people is like, yeah, thanks for asking about that. Thanks for holding me accountable.
Mm-hmm.
I needed that. I needed one person to just be willing to say, how you doing on that? You said you were going to work on it. You said you were going to have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had it yet? No, I haven't. How come you haven't had it? What's stopping you?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's going to get better if you don't have that conversation? Just those kind of questions that just sort of push people towards, I got to do this. And then, of course, if they do it and it goes well, they're just like, hey, that was awesome, and thanks for challenging me to do that. So it's been really fun for me as a person that's no longer interested in how high I can climb, is to help other people be more successful in what they do.
Yeah. Yeah, and the question of what is one small thing?
Yeah.
Because we think that well, that's not a big enough change, or that's not it's not really going to make that big of a difference. But you and I both know that small improvements, small adjustments over time make a big difference.
Yes, they do.
I'm reading through the book right now, Atomic Habits, and it's just it's simple things.
Yeah, it is.
It's simple things.
Right.
I think about there's a section where it talks about stacking, and it's like, okay, so you want to grow in this area. Well, how can you stack that onto something else that you're already doing, that it doesn't seem like it's, oh my gosh, it's going to take way more time, or it's super hard, but it's just, okay, while I'm driving, I'm going to listen to this. Mm-hmm. Or, one thing, like, and this isn't just on the leadership and work end too. This is also just great relationship stuff. Yeah, it is. This is, you want to talk about marriage stuff. Yeah. One of the things that I started putting into place probably, I don't know, about 3-4 years ago was, Laura I'd be in a meeting, Laura would text me and she would need something. Mm-hmm. Well, and so she would text multiple times. She really needed something. Yeah, right. And sometimes it was something like, hey, I'm at the grocery store, and would you rather have, Cocoa Puffs or whatever? Yeah. I don't eat much cereal. But anyway, you know the point. Sometimes it was a grocery store question, but sometimes it really was a serious deal. And she would get frustrated because I didn't get back to her because she needed me. And so what I started to put into place was something that I just had to remember to do. Mm-hmm. Minor inconvenience, barely, if you could call it that, was that before I would go into a meeting, I would just text her and say, hey, I'm going into a meeting. Do you need anything? Yeah. Yeah. What it did, and I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but it was so meaningful, Rick. Yes. Because it was, one, I was thinking of her.
Yes, you were thinking of her.
I was thinking of her in the middle of the day, during my productivity time or whatever. Yep. And then also I cared enough to say, hey, I'm going to be busy for the next hour, but do you need anything before I am going to be? Right. And then I want to respond, but if I can't, I won't be able to. So you're right. Great message to send. I will do that occasionally with Valerie, or if I'm driving between
2 meetings, I'll just, hey, just checking in. So, well, how come you're calling? Just checking in.
Yeah.
She said, thanks for doing that.
Yes.
Like it never fails that she's grateful. I took a few minutes, and it's not that hard.
Yeah, she never received that as stop irritating me.
No, exactly. No, she'd quit bugging me.
Yeah,
No, she's always grateful that I took the time to call. Right.
Oh, that's good.
Right.
So that's important, whether it's on just the leadership work, self-improvement, and even on our relationship, and it's stuff with our kids too. You know, just letting kids know.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of our kids have phones now, and texting them throughout the day and say, hey, praying for you have a test, thinking about you, hope you're having a great day, those types of things, and those keep the door open for them to maybe discuss some things with you later on that otherwise they wouldn't, as well. So that's good. All right. So you mentioned the Leadership South Dakota. And you said you just graduated the 7th class?
Yep, just graduated our 7th group.
That's awesome. So tell me, rewind to when you first started it. What compelled you to say we need a Leadership South Dakota group, class, whatever? And did you envision at that point, like when you did, like when I started the Men's Summit, I was going to do one and done kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden God was like, nope, this is needed. So why did you start it? And, was it always intended to continue on?
Yeah. So my wife and I have good friends in Chugwater, Wyoming, which is a
Chugwater
small,
chili.
Yes, exactly. Right. A little north of Cheyenne. And so we were visiting them probably 8-9 years ago. And Dan, my friend, and, he and his wife, Lynn, were the folks that we were visiting. He said, I just finished Leadership Wyoming. And I was like, so what's that? And he was telling me about it, showed me his booklet with all the information in it. And this is where I sort of say, I got the idea, and then the Lord just stepped in and went, you're doing this. Because all the way home, days and days after, I could not quit thinking about this. And I just said to Valerie, and this is when I was still at USD, still doing the dean work, but I was kind of like, is this it for me? Am I all done with anything? And then this came along, and I couldn't quit thinking about it. So I started talking to some folks and got really good feedback, like, yeah, we need that in our state. That'd be a good thing to do. So just little things along the way, sort of God removed obstacles, presented opportunities for me with, helpful people, and just gave me the wisdom to sort of call the right people, and things just fell into place. So we had our first class in 2014-15, and that was, at that point, it was a small little LLC, and I thought, let's just start it this way and see what happens, much like your RESGEN experience. And then the longer it went, I could tell we were getting some momentum. I mean, people started to hear about it, and we were getting more interest. So then we moved to a 501c3, so now it's a nonprofit, so I work for a board. So I'm now, I'm at their mercy, which is great. There's an awesome board. And I also am more interested, I'd like to have this thing be around in 20 or 30 years.
Yes.
And the likelihood of that is better if it's a nonprofit than if I'm just kind of running a little LLC company. So it's been awesome, Tom, and it's, again, a great role for Valerie and I to play at a stage of our life where, we're really more invested in pouring into people than we are our own sort of, significance. And she is a great partner with me in that. I'm more the academic program, and she's that person that kind of moves around and makes sure everybody's okay. She feeds people. She puts people in hotel beds and, does all that kind of logistics work. And then just is kind of the woman that's kind of checking in on them, like, you all right? You doing okay? I heard your mom was sick. How's she doing? How's your husband? He had surgery last week. And a lot of that stuff I'm kind of not always tuned into because I'm thinking about the next thing. So together, it just is meant to be a really good partnership, and it has been. So I can't see the Lord, I can't see us doing this work without the Lord's intervention.
Yeah.
I think he just knew what we needed at a time of our life when we really needed it, and it's been a blessing.
Yeah, and the program, for lack of better words, is not necessarily a faith-based program.
No.
However, I mean, obviously you have people that are focused on faith leading it and all of that. So let's say someone's listening. They live in South Dakota.
Yeah.
Just give a snapshot of how many participants each year. How long is the program for that year? Because you start and then there's a graduation each year.
Right.
And just kind of what are the main takeaways or learnings that you want those leaders to attain while they're a part of it? Yeah.
So 40 people a year. We start in September. We finish in March. We visit 6 cities or communities during the course of that year. One, every month, September, October, November. We take December off, and then January, February, March. So 6 sessions that start on Wednesday and finish on Friday. So they're a good 2.5 days long, each one we do. And it's a field trip around South Dakota. We meet people, we see places, and we learn about leadership. Very, very tidy. That's the description. And the thing that we didn't anticipate, Tom, that's probably been the greatest blessing, has been the networking that goes on with those 40 people. You put 40 people that are all going to change the world in their own ways. Because these are ambitious people that want to, make a difference. And we put them all together. And then our job is to convene them together and take them around the state, and their job is to, go from there. And they do. I mean, they just are starting nonprofits, they're running for elected office, they're, just hopefully being better husbands and wives and parents and community members too. So it's just been really gratifying to watch all that happen. Our job is to bring them together, put speakers and opportunities in front of them, and then we say at the end, now it's your turn. Now, what are you going to do? And it doesn't have to be something that's going to change the rotation of the earth. It's like, what are you going to do? What's your little niche that you feel like, I'm built for this. I can do this. This is something I can have an influence over. Then go do it. Make your community a better place. Right. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So if people want a little bit more info, they want to maybe apply. When do applications?
Yeah. So we just finished. We just are picking our class right now and are calling them this week actually to let them know they're in or not. So it'll be next January. For the fall of 22. Okay. And so we have about a 3-month window of time. Our website's out there, www.leadershipsouthdakota.com, and people can, or just, get a phone number off the website and call. We're happy to help. But it's been a great experience for us, and we look forward to these folks. We have 280 plus alums right now, and we're excited about the work they're going to be doing over the next 20 years.
Yeah. That's awesome the way that you're. Just a way to see how highly respected it is.
Yeah,
I mean, it is a highly respected program, and it's an honor. You can just see what an honor it is for people to be a part of it, and the excitement of graduating out, and then the relationships that you can see, like you just alluded to, of saying that was what you underestimated.
Yes.
It wasn't just about the leadership skills and the learning of
which
the
we thought was going to be the primary thing.
Right, exactly. But it's that relationships, which once again proves that relationships, regardless of where you live, what sector of the world you work in, relationships are key.
Yeah.
And when we place a primacy on relationships, I mean, that's God gave us a relationship with Him, with others. Right. I mean, that's that.
And that's how you have influence to get things done.
Right.
It's been fun to watch.
Yeah. All right. Well, I got just a couple more things, and then I am gonna tell you we're gonna do something that we do at the end of every show where we call the final word, where you're just gonna be given 30 to 60 seconds of just anything that you want to say, encourage, challenge the guys that are listening with. But I know that you're a man of the word. We talked about just how important faith is. And I don't ask everybody this, but I love to just talk to certain guys about who's someone in the Bible that that you've learned a lot from, that you just really, you love their story. Doesn't have to be a leader, but I mean, just... And I know it's tempting to give the Sunday school answer of Jesus, right? I mean, I just love Jesus. I mean,
what can I say? He was perfect.
But so what are some of the person in the Bible that you just find fascinating and that you just love?
Yeah, probably I would have said Joseph, and that would certainly be one of them. But actually, I just kind of finished reading Exodus and Genesis, Moses. I mean, like the guy who just was, first of all, God was like, you need to do this. You're like, no, I don't want to do this. You need to do it. You can do it. I'll give you Aaron. He'll help you. I mean, you got help, so just go do it. And so then he does it, and he encounters all kinds of challenges, all kinds of challenges you well know. And yet, when he has those challenges, what he does is he goes to the Lord, like, Lord, what am I supposed to do? What do I do with these people? Or what am I going to do now? I mean, I got this thing, they're thirsty, or they're hungry, or we can't get across this body of water. And then God helps him, and I realize in the Old Testament, it seems like it's like a different world than the world we live in today.
Sure.
But I don't think it's dramatically different. Like if I'm a leader and I don't know what to do, I always think Moses just stopped and went, Lord, so what do I do now? What am I supposed to do here?
Yeah, and he did it first.
And yes, right. He did it. Yeah, exactly. So I just feel like that was such a really an affirmation for me, that instead of thinking I have to figure everything out myself, just like, Lord, help me with this. I'm struggling with this. And it isn't a formal prayer. It's just this stop for a minute and go, Lord, I need you right now. I'm going to make a call here in a few minutes, and I really don't know for sure what to say. Or I'm heading into a meeting that I think is going to be a little challenging. Would you just be with me? Just, sit next to me, help me figure out what to say, what to do.
Yeah.
And too often we think I'm just going to muscle through it. I'm going to, just sort of make this all happen instead of just stopping for a minute and going, Lord, I need you. Because that's what Moses did.
Yeah.
And he took care of him. Now, it wasn't always the answer that Moses wanted or, whatever, but at the same time, and then, here's the guy who ultimately didn't get to finish the job. He actually didn't get to the promised land, but he led him right up to the edge. And then, he didn't get to finish that job, but he was faithful throughout. And so Moses is my guy right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I might answer it differently in a month or two, but right now he's close to my heart, and I just admire how he led.
Yeah, I'm riding with Moses.
Yeah, exactly. If he says it's going to happen, I'm with him. Right.
And I love, and for those that aren't watching, just listening, I mean, you even got emotional as you're just thinking about that.
I get emotional a lot, but at the same time, I just really feel like too often we think we can do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, man, I just got to stop and say, Lord, I'm going to invite you in here for a minute. Help me with this. And he hasn't failed me. I mean, when I need a little wisdom, if I'm willing to give him the time and energy to provide it, he shows up.
Yeah.
But if I don't give him room and space, then it's not going to happen.
I know that's one of the things that you also, and this will be the kind of last thing we talk about here today, but I know that is something that you are very passionate about and that you talk about in the Iron Sharpens Iron retreats. And I want to end our time just talking about that. And you and I have connected on several different levels, throughout the entirety of our relationship. But the desire to see men just love Jesus, love their wives, love their kids, know who they are, try to make a kingdom impact wherever they're at, whatever role God has them in. I mean, we share that passion, and I've been so appreciative of your encouragement to me in the Men's Summit and the marriage events we do and in the podcast and all of that. And so and I was just tremendously thrilled when I heard that you wanted to do something to really help guys, roughly 12 at a time, through a kind of a 30-hour experience called the Iron Sharpens Iron Retreat, here in the Sioux Falls area, where you take guys on an adventure, just to a retreat center, and say, okay, let's get real.
Right.
So talk a little bit real quick about the Iron Sharpens Iron Retreat and what that is.
Thanks, Tom.
So,
we've done 3 of them so far, and they've been awesome. So essentially, Swan Lake Christian Camp, we gather out there, 12 men, and we essentially take them through kind of 3 parts. It's a Sunday evening and then all day Monday. And we try to pick Sundays and Mondays because they're kind of quieter at the camp, and we think men can take a little time away from a weekend and a little time away from work, but not completely the weekend or completely work. So we're hoping to kind of bridge that gap. So Sunday evening is, where have you been? What's your story? What about your past that you're sort of living with today, good or bad? And then once we sort of set that foundation, then Monday morning is like, what do you think God's telling you today, like right now? Much like the coaching experience I talked about earlier. Like, what are you hearing from God now? What are you going through? What are you dealing with? What are you wrestling with? And then that's Monday morning, and then Monday afternoon is, okay, we've heard about your past. We've heard about what's going on with you today, right now. What are you going to do about it? Let's back to your kind of small goals. What are some things you could do tomorrow and forward from here that might strengthen your relationship with the Lord, strengthen your relationship with the key people in your life moving forward? And we've had about 30 men that have gone through it so far. I think they've been blessed by it. We get really good feedback whenever we do it. And I'm just reminded of how infrequently we slow down and take some time to just rest and relax and reflect. Every retreat we've had, I've had at least one guy, if not more, say, I've never thought about this until now. And so that tells me that we aren't giving ourselves enough room to really just think and reflect. And, in my daily life and in your daily life, we don't have a lot of time when there's not a little bit of noise going on. We get out there, it's pretty quiet, and we carve out 3 hours, an hour on Sunday night, hour on Monday morning, hour on Monday afternoon for a handful of reflection questions to just sit and think about what's going on with you now. And then people share. They come back and share what they're thinking about and reflecting on, and just like the Leadership South Dakota experience, guys learn from each other, that iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
That whole idea that, hey, I heard him dealing with that. I'm dealing with something similar. I can get through it if he can. That strength that comes through the bonding of the retreat has been really fun to watch.
Well, that's and I know I've had several friends that have been a part of it, and they talk about how well orchestrated it is, how well you lead that, and that it is a powerful time of just not only just teaching, but that reflection piece.
Yeah.
And you think about how many times, I mean, think about Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Jesus, very busy.
Yeah, he had a few things to do.
But yet he always made time,
Right.
found time to go and be in the wilderness, be in a retreat, to be on his own, and to go and commune with the Father. And it was during that time that's where he received what he needed, and that it was given instruction for where he was to go. And and I know that is a huge focus of these retreats. And so so I'm so glad that you're doing these and that they're as impactful as they are. So if guys want to find out the schedule of that, find out more information, where do they go to do that?
There's a www.isiretreat.com. We have a website that you can go to. If you just kind of Google it, I think you can find that. And then the schedule's on there for this retreats that are coming up, and a little bit about what we do there. And then there's a phone number. It's my phone number. They can sure call me or email me or text me and say I'm interested, and I'd love to talk to anybody that's interested. We use the story of Joseph in that retreat where, he was, of course, had all kinds of negative things happen to him in the past.
Yeah.
And they did spill over into his present and into his future.
Sure.
And it's a great model for all of us men to recognize that just because you've had a challenging past, that doesn't have to define who you are going forward. And Joseph remained faithful through all of it, and God blessed him in the end. And we'd like to think that's how every story can end.
Yeah, that's awesome. So isiretreat.com is where guys can go find out. All right, well, we've covered a lot of ground. I've had a lot of fun. I don't know about you.
Awesome,
but
Tom. That's great.
It's been great. So we've come to the end. We've come to the end of this edition of the episode of the RESGEN Giving Life podcast. And as I warned you, we have just something we call the final word. And so I'd love for you to take 30, 60, 90 seconds to just give kind of a final word of whatever the Lord lays on your heart to the guys that are listening.
Yeah. Well, every day is a ministry opportunity. Wake up every morning realizing that, there's people that I'm going to come in contact with today. I hope that the Lord sees me in my actions and my words. I love Psalm 19:14. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing to you, Lord. And that's a good message that I'd like to send to everybody that's listening is recognize that every day is a marriage or ministry opportunity, including your marriage and your children. And then, of course, everybody you come in contact with outside of that. And then I'll use a few seconds to just say thank you for the work that you do. I mean, the men that you're influencing, Tom, the ministry that you lead right now, the impact that you're having in this area and all across the country has been awesome. And I just want to say thanks for answering the call and your willingness to serve the Lord in the way you do. So thank you for that. And thanks for the opportunity today.
Oh man, loved it. Absolutely loved it. This is why I wanted you in the top list right there. I had it. I had your name listed because I knew the content that you were going to be given throughout the time was going to be just rock solid. So thank you for that. I really appreciate you being here, Rick.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks again for tuning into this episode of the Giving Life podcast. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Rick Melmer today. If you found our conversation helpful, I encourage you to share it with others in your relational world that may find it helpful as well. If you'd like to connect with Rick a little more, you can do so on LinkedIn. And if you're more interested in information about Leadership South Dakota, just head to leadershipsouthdakota.com. Thanks again for joining me today. We'll see you next time on RESGEN's Giving Life podcast. Until then, continue being men whose life in Christ gives life to others.